Introduced to the idea of percents, fractions, things like that. And we did get to start to see some different story problems. And so I threw out what I always kind of refer to as the story problem portion of, or part of, our proportions. And so up here at the very top of section 7.2, there are 2% proportions. And the second one is the one that we've already discussed. And that's what our opener during third periods kind of was tied to as well, where we started to see percent over 100 is equal to part over whole. Now, there is a quote-unquote percent proportions that is often talked about in a lot of other math classes other than just pre-algebra, algebra 1, geometry, algebra 2, and all of those, okay? And so I want to bring your attention to the first proportion that is listed up here at the top of this, okay? And it is our proportion that says percent over 100 is equal to is over of. All right? And you might say, what in the world does this have to do with anything? These are the key words that you're going to use in, again, our quote-unquote story problems, because these are super short story problems here, are keywords to identify what goes where. All right? So some similarities between what we talked about yesterday and what we talked about today. Remember that in a proportion, we have a numerator and denominator and another numerator and denominator, okay? The one constant in both of these problems, actually, the one constant is the 100. It's always going to be 100 on the bottom of it. Now remember, why is it always going to be a 100 on the bottom of it? Because that's how we define what a percent is, okay? So notice that the left-hand side of this proportion and the left-hand side of this proportion are both the same. They both start with percent over 100. The only difference is, instead of yesterday we talked about part over whole, today we're going to talk about the is and the of. You might say, well, why do we need two different pieces of it? Because when you look at example letter A, there is no part and whole. There's no context in this problem to say what is the part or what is the whole, okay? Instead, you have keywords such as is and of. All right, so again, as I alluded to earlier, I'm going to practice through 3 of these, okay? And then you're going to practice through 3 of these, and we're going to see kind of how we do with this. So for example number 1, find the missing quantity in each problem. All right, I need eyes up here, ladies and gentlemen. I've got about a third of this kind of stayed off into space. I'm sorry if your other classes haven't done much today. We're teaching today. Okay, that's kind of been the common theme that I've heard. Oh, we watched a movie today because nobody was in class. I don't care if no one's here today. I'm teaching today, and you are responsible for this material on next week's assessment. Okay, so let's make sure we got attention up here. So it says, what percent of 9 is 5? Okay, there are 2 keywords in this particular sentence that also show up in this proportion. Okay? We see the word of, and with the word of, we have the number 9. And then we also see our second keyword in this problem, and that's the word is, and with the word is the number 5. So, if we think of this as a percent over 100 equals is over of, this is going to tell us exactly where we need to set everything else up. Okay? So, we're going to begin with our percent proportion. Something over 100 is equal to is over of. Remember, this is the one constant. Out of my 4 spots, this 100 will always be right here. Okay? 2 of the other 3 spots are going to be filled with other numbers. Whether that number is a percent, whether that number is an is, whether that number is an of, that kind of depends on the situation. So, when we look at this, again, what keyword is with the number 9? The word of. So where does that tell us that 9 needs to go? On the top, or on the bottom? On the bottom. Okay, so 9 is going to go over here on the bottom. All right? Now, our other number keyword in this problem was the is. It's tagged with the 5. Well, obviously the only spot left is to go on top. Is it going to go where the percent goes, though, or is it going to go where the is goes? It's going to go where the is goes. So, the only thing left that I don't know is this right here. And what is this always represent since it's over 100%? So kind of this is what I always tell people, like the variable part should be asked in the question. What does it ask for? What percent? That's got to be where my variable goes. My percent needs to be with my variable. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that's all you got to do that's different. Now you're back to what we were just assessed on 2 days ago. Solve this proportion. Evan, what do you want to do to solve this proportion here? There you go. Since x is being divided by 100, you could, instead of cross multiplying, you could just go ahead and multiply both sides by 100. Okay, when we multiply by 100, it's going to undo the multiplication and the division, and we have x is equal to, and on the other side, you're grabbing your calculators and you're just typing that in. You're going to take 5 divided by 9, you're going to multiply that by 100, and what are we going to get? 55.555555, and at the very end it puts a 6. What's that telling us? There's a repeating symbol in this problem. So we're going to put 55.5 repeating. And now again, what's the answer to this problem? It is a percent. I need to make sure that I add a percent here. Question. Rounded to what? But in the past, we rounded it if it was a story problem where a decimal didn't make sense. And we also rounded it if it was an inequality type problem. This one, we're actually just going to be able to leave it exactly as it is, 55.5%. Now, here's something I want to caution you on, because again, if you only listen to pieces of this, it's going to cause you issues. When you put a percent symbol behind your number, when it's asking for a percent, what if the number is supposed to be 60 and I put 60%? Will I count that wrong in your assessment next week? Yes, because as we talked about yesterday, the number 60 and the number 60% are two drastically different numbers. If it's a percent, make sure that you've got it labeled as one. If it's not, then no. All right, let's look at example 1b. Okay, what number is 15% of 30? All right, so let's plug this in. Again, we know that we've got the 100 right here from the get-go. We know that's a given. Okay, Kane, give me a number that you see in this problem, a number that you see in this problem. 15. So is that the percent, the is, or the of? That is our percent. Where does our percent always go? Above 100. We're going to put 15 right over here. Okay? Chloe H, give me another number you see in this problem. 300. What keyword is with the number 300? Of. So where does 300 need to go, Chloe, on top or bottom? It needs to go on the bottom. So if we put that over here on the bottom, the only spot left is to put our top here. And again, here's what I would point out. It says, what number is? The what number tells us it's a variable, and the is where it's tagged with it. So the is should have the variable portion of this. Roland, how do you want to solve this proportion here?
Take 15 times 300 and 100 times x.
All right, so Roland wants to solve this using cross products. So we're going to take 100 times x, and we're going to set this equal to 15 times 300. Okay, we're going to go ahead and solve that proportion from there. So 100 times x is 100x. 15 times 300 should be 4,500. Okay, so now if I'm going to go ahead and actually solve this equation for x, we're going to need to divide each side by 100. And when we do that, x turns out to be equal to 45. Okay, do I put a percent at the end of it? No, because it didn't ask for a percent. Now again, here's the cool part. Everybody's got their calculators, right? Double check your answer. And I'm not going to tell you how to. I want to see if you can double check it. I'm asking you to double check it. Somebody tell me how are you doing it. Caitlin. Okay, so in this case, we take what two numbers we divide here? And if you do that on your calculator, what do you get, everyone? you get 0.15. Now, why is 0.15 significant? Because if you move the decimal point 2 spots to the right, it becomes 15, and it's 15%. Okay? Again, use your resources to check your answers. Okay? All right, let's slide down, take a look at letter C here. All right. Again, let's start with what we know already. We know that we have something over 100 is equal to or is over of. So in that case, we've got blank over 100 equals, and then I've got 2 more blanks here. All right, Megan, give me a number that you identify in this problem. Okay, what is the keyword that goes with 40? So where does 40 have to go?
Over the 100.
It's got to go over the 100. We know right away that that's going to go over the 100 because that's the place that our percent always goes. Hayden, give me another number you see in that problem. Okay, what's the keyword with 124? Is, so where does that have to tell us to go, on the top or the bottom? On the top, because it's is over of. So 124 is on the top. The only spot left in for my variable is on the bottom. And again, I would point out it says of one number. And remember, the of always goes on the bottom. So that again tells me my variable's on the bottom here. Okay? Quinn, how do you want to solve this one? Cross products. Okay, really, that's the only option you really have in this particular problem. We're going to take 40 times x, and that's equal to 100 times 124. So now I'd have 40 times x is equal to 12,400. And if I were to divide each side by 40, then x becomes, what is that? 310? 310. Do I put a percent at the end of that one? No, because it's not asking me for a percent. Okay, I want to walk around and see this on your calculator. Show me what you're typing in to check your answer. So what are we typing into our calculator to double check this? Somebody tell me, Caitlin? 124 divided by 310. And when we do that on our calculator, what do we get? 0.4, which is what? 40% as a decimal. Okay, we talked about yesterday being able to take that percent to a decimal and everything else like that. That's what you're double checking. Okay? All right, I would like all of you to go ahead and do D, E, and F. And we're going to come back here in just a couple minutes and we'll compare answers to those 3. All right, when you are done with your three, go ahead and check those three with mine up there on the board. Please note that letter E was a percent problem, so your answer must be labeled as a percent, whereas the other two are not percent problems, so you do not want percent symbols written down for letter D or F. And then again, we are always double checking your answers. Take the is divided by the of. If you multiply that by 100, that is where you should always be getting the matching percent. You might say, well, if they don't give me the percent, well, then that's fine. That should be what your percent is. Is divided by of times 100. Now, again, you may have different work for letter E and letter F than what I do because some of you are choosing to cross multiply all the time. I'm fine with that, okay? But again, I'm showing the most effective method, and if I can just solve this in a one-step problem, that's exactly what I'm going to do for those. So questions, I'm trusting you without calling on all of you to check your answers. Do we have any questions on D, E, or F? Caden? Okay, what about it? Okay. All right, so as we can see, this is a new percent proportion better than our part in our whole, okay? But if we slide down to example G, we're going to see that the new percent proportion we just gave you has its limitations. So, as we look at letter G, it says that you received 189, or 45% of the votes in the student council election. So here's what it means. You got that many votes, and that many votes was 45% of the total votes. Okay? How many students voted in the election? So, this is where, again, the proportion that I set up yesterday and that we introduced yesterday does not show up in your textbook. Okay? I'll be honest, the idea of percent over 100 equals is over of doesn't help you here. Because I don't see the word is at all, and the word of isn't tagged with any number. So if that's the only proportion that I learned, percent over 100 equals part over whole, we're going to have issues. Okay? That doesn't help us in this particular problem. So when we get to what I would call a true word problem, a situation scenario that is given, not just 9 is 5% of this number. Okay? This is where we want to do our part in our whole. So, we'll begin here. Again, the one constant that we know is that on the bottom here is 100. Okay? So, we have two other numbers and we have to determine where they go. Okay. Give me one number that is listed in this problem. 189. All right, so here's my question. Is that my percent? Is that my part? Or is that my whole? Okay, why? Okay, so that's what you got. But what's the question asked? How many students voted in the election, right? So is 189 everyone who voted in the election? No, the 189 is represents what? It's, what's that? It's how many, nope. Not just how many people voted, because that would be my total. That would be my whole. My 189 represents how many votes you got. Did you get them all? No, you only got part of them. Look at that. That's the word part. You only got part of them. So your 189 in this problem is the part that you got. Okay, Ron, give me another number we see in this problem.
45.
45, and of course we know 45 is our percent because it's got our percent symbol. So Ron, where's that have to go? It's got to go over the top of the 100. So what am I looking for in this problem? What does this represent? The total number of students, right? Which is what we were asked. How many students voted in this particular election? Okay, I'll be honest. This is my concern is I'm not worried about whether or not we know how to solve proportions because I feel like we do. I'm concerned that we know how to set them up. And that's what this entire standard is all about. You got to be able to set them up. So in this one, really the only choice I'm going to have is to solve this by using cross products. So my first cross product says I'm going to take 45 and I'm going to multiply that by x. And my second cross product says I'm going to take 100 and multiply that by 189. And I'm going to solve this for x. So 45x equals 18,900. And then divide each side by 45. All right, who's got that for me? Caitlin.
420.
420. Okay, somebody other than Caitlin, because she's told me both times so far, tell me how you're going to check your answer here. Cynthia. Okay, but I don't have it isn't enough. Tell me what numbers I'm using here.
The 18,900 and divide that by 45 times that.
Nope. Go back to the original proportion. Kane, what are we doing?
Plug 420 into the variable and divide to 809 and multiply by 100.
Say that again.
You plug 420 into the variable, then divide by 189 and multiply by 100.
Not divide by 189. You want to take 189 and divide by 420. So everybody do that on your calculator. What's 189 divided by 420? 0.45. Again, why is 0.45 significant? That's your 45%. Okay, 45% as a decimal is 0.45. Your calculator is giving you that decimal value. Okay, that's all that it's doing. All right, you guys flip it over, and you're going to work on the one on the back. All right, Bryce, give me a number in this problem.
94.
Okay, what is 94?
Oh,
Percent, part, or whole?
percent.
It is our percent, okay, because it's giving us our percent symbol right behind it. So we got 94%. All right, who haven't I heard from for a while? Just Cynthia. My other number is 329. Is that my part or my whole? Yes, it is our part. It's the part that we got. It's our grade. And our question is how many total points were on there. So that's going to tell us that we're looking for the whole. Again, just like in problem letter G, we're going to have to solve this one with cross multiplication. So now what we have is 94x is equal to 32,900. And if we divide each side by 94, then x should turn out to be 350. And again, if I'm going to double check this, I'm going to take 329, I'm going to divide that by 350, and it should give me 0.94, because that's my 94% written as a decimal. All right, questions on any of this? Like I said, really the only thing that we're really testing you on is setting up the proportions. The solving portion of it, that's what you've already been assessed on. That should be the easy part once you've gotten done setting it up. All right, your assignment then for the weekend is going to be page 353, numbers 1 through 17. That is not all, or sorry, odd, that's not even, that's just 1 through 17.